Have you ever felt the weight of the world pressing down on you, urging you to change who you are just to fit in? Maybe it was a moment at work, in a relationship, or even scrolling through social media, where you felt the pull to conform, to mold yourself into something you're not. It's a universal struggle, one that can leave us feeling lost, disconnected, and unsure of who we truly are. But what if there was a way to stand firm in your authenticity, even when the world seems determined to reshape you? This is where Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that has guided countless individuals through life's toughest challenges, offers profound wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest practitioners, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. These words remind us that while we can't control the pressures around us, we can control how we respond to them. In this video, we'll explore how Stoic principles like resilience, detachment, and self-awareness can help you stay true to yourself, no matter what the world throws your way. So let me ask you this: how often do you compromise your values just to fit in? And what would it take to live a life that's authentically yours? Let's dive in and find out. Stoicism teaches us that not everything is ours to control. Think about it: how often do we waste energy trying to change things that are simply outside our power? The weather, other people's opinions, or even the expectations society places on us, these are all external forces that we can't dictate. But here's the key insight: while we can't control these external pressures, we can control how we respond to them. This is the heart of the Stoic concept known as the Dichotomy of Control. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it simply: some things are within our power while others are not. He urged us to focus our energy only on what's within our power, our thoughts, actions, and choices, and let go of the rest. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're at work and your boss expects you to take on a project that goes against your personal values. Maybe it's something that feels unethical or misaligned with who you are. The pressure to conform is real and it's easy to feel trapped, but here's where the dichotomy of control comes in. You can't control your boss's expectations or the demands of the workplace, but you can control how you respond. Do you compromise your values to fit in, or do you stay true to yourself, even if it means facing consequences? Stoicism doesn't promise an easy path, but it does offer clarity. By focusing on what's within your control, your integrity, your decisions, your mindset, you reclaim your power. So let me ask you this: where in your life have you been trying to control the uncontrollable? Is it in a relationship, at work, or even in how you see yourself compared to others? Take a moment to reflect on that, because when you start to distinguish between what you can and can't control, you'll find a newfound sense of freedom and the courage to stay true to yourself no matter what. To stay true to yourself, you must first know who you are. It sounds simple, but how often do we pause to truly reflect on our values, our desires, and what drives us? Self-awareness is the cornerstone of authenticity, and Stoicism places immense value on this practice. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote, "You must linger among a limited number of master thinkers and digest their works if you would derive ideas which shall win firm hold in your mind." What he's saying is this: to know yourself, you must spend time with yourself, your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions. It's through this reflection that you can align your life with what truly matters to you. Let's take a moment to consider Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Despite the immense pressures of ruling an empire, he consistently turned inward, journaling his thoughts and reflecting on his actions. His personal writings, now known as Meditations, reveal a man deeply committed to understanding himself. He didn't just react to the chaos around him, he paused, reflected, and acted with intention. This self-awareness allowed him to lead with integrity, even when the world demanded otherwise. Imagine the weight of his responsibilities, yet he found clarity by knowing himself. Now think about your own life. How often do you act on autopilot, simply reacting to the pressures around you without considering whether your actions align with your values? Here's a practical step. Take a few minutes each day to journal. Write down your core values, what truly matters to you, and then reflect on how your recent actions align with those values. Are you living in a way that feels authentic, or are you bending to external pressures? This simple practice can be transformative, helping you build the self-awareness needed to resist the pull of conformity. So let me ask you this: what are the values that define you, and how often do you check in with yourself to ensure your actions reflect those values? Because when you know who you are, the world's pressures lose their grip. You become the author of your own story, grounded in self-awareness and guided by what truly matters. What others think of you is not your concern. Let that sink in for a moment. How often do we let the fear of judgment dictate our decisions, our actions, even our sense of self-worth? It's a heavy burden to carry, isn't it? But here's the truth: the opinions of others are not within your control. They never have been, and according to Stoicism, they're not worth your energy either. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly: "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Think about that. We're so quick to prioritize what others think, even when it comes at the expense of our own happiness and authenticity. Why? Because societal pressures thrive on this fear of judgment. They convince us that fitting in is more important than standing out, that conformity is safer than individuality. But Stoicism offers a different path, one of cognitive detachment. Cognitive detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about people or become indifferent to the world. It means you stop letting external opinions define you. It's about recognizing that someone else's judgment is their business, not yours. Their thoughts, their words, their expectations, these are all outside your control. What is within your control is how you respond. Do you let their opinions shape your choices, or do you stay grounded in your own values? This is where Stoicism gives you the tools to reclaim your power. Let's bring this to life with a practical example. Imagine someone who dreams of becoming an artist but is constantly told by family and friends that it's not a real career. The pressure to conform, to choose a more practical path, is overwhelming. They might even start to doubt themselves, wondering if their passion is worth the judgment they'll face. But then they remember the Stoic principle of cognitive detachment. They realize that the opinions of others, no matter how loud or persistent, don't define their worth or their potential. So they take the leap. They pursue their passion, not because it's easy, but because it's true to who they are. And in doing so, they find a sense of freedom they've never known before. Now let's turn the mirror on ourselves. Can you think of a time when you let someone else's opinion dictate your choices? Maybe it was a career decision, a relationship, or even something as simple as how you dressed or spoke. How did it feel to prioritize their judgment over your own authenticity? And what would it look like to let go of that fear, to detach from the need for approval and live life on your own terms? Because here's the thing, when you stop worrying about what others think, you create space for what truly matters, your own growth, your own happiness, your own truth. And that's where real freedom begins. Stoicism teaches that true strength lies in virtue. But what does that really mean? In a world that often values success, popularity, and material wealth above all else, the idea of living by virtues like wisdom, courage, and justice might seem outdated or even naive. Yet, Stoicism argues that these virtues are the very foundation of an authentic life. They act as a compass, guiding us through the noise and pressures of the world, helping us stay true to who we are. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most profound thinkers, put it this way: virtue is the highest good and the only thing that is truly our own. In other words, no matter what happens around us, our virtues, our character, are the one thing no one can take away. They're the essence of who we are. Let's break this down. Imagine you're faced with a difficult decision, one that could either align with your values or compromise them for the sake of convenience or approval. Maybe it's standing up for a colleague who's being treated unfairly, even if it means risking your own reputation. Or perhaps it's choosing honesty in a situation where lying would be easier. These moments test our commitment to virtue, and here's the thing: every time we choose virtue over convenience, we strengthen our sense of self. We become more grounded, more authentic, and more resilient in the face of external pressures. Consider the story of a young professional who was offered a promotion at work, but only if they agreed to overlook unethical practices within the company. The pressure to conform was immense. After all, this was a chance to advance their career, earn more money, and gain recognition. But deep down, they knew that accepting the promotion would mean betraying their values. So they made the difficult choice to walk away. It wasn't easy, and it came with its own set of challenges, but in the end, they felt a profound sense of peace. Why? Because they stayed true to their virtues: integrity, justice, and courage. They chose authenticity over approval, and in doing so, they reclaimed their power. Now, let's turn this inward. What about you? Which Stoic virtue resonates most with your life right now? Is it wisdom, the ability to see clearly and make thoughtful decisions? Courage, the strength to face challenges head-on, even when it's uncomfortable? Or justice, the commitment to fairness and doing what's right, even when it's inconvenient? Take a moment to reflect on this, because when you identify the virtue you want to embody more fully, you take the first step toward living a life that's authentically yours. And remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every small choice to align with your virtues is a step toward a stronger, more authentic you. So, what's your next step? Everything changes, including societal expectations. Think about it. The trends, norms, and pressures that once seemed so important often fade into irrelevance over time. What was considered normal or acceptable a decade ago might feel outdated or even absurd today. And yet, in the moment, these societal pressures can feel overwhelming, as if they'll last forever. But Stoicism offers a powerful perspective: impermanence. Marcus Aurelius, in his timeless wisdom, wrote, "All things of the body stream away like a river. All things of the mind are dreams and delusion. Life is warfare and a visit to a strange land." What he's saying is this: everything external, whether it's societal expectations, material possessions, or even the opinions of others, is fleeting. It's here today, gone tomorrow. And when we truly grasp this truth, something remarkable happens. The fear of societal pressures begins to lose its grip on us. Let's take a moment to reflect on how societal trends have shifted over time. Remember when everyone was obsessed with having the latest flip phone, or when certain fashion trends like parachute pants or frosted tips were all the rage? At the time, these things felt like they defined success, popularity, or even identity. But now, they're relics of the past, often met with laughter or nostalgia. The same will be true for the pressures we face today. The expectations to look a certain way, achieve a certain status, or live a certain lifestyle, they're not permanent. They're just passing waves in the ocean of life. And when we recognize this, we can stop chasing after them and start focusing on what truly matters. So, what does Stoicism teach us about impermanence? It's not just about accepting that things change. It's about using that understanding to refocus our energy. When we realize that societal pressures are temporary, we're free to prioritize what's enduring, our values, our relationships, and our inner growth. Instead of worrying about fitting into a mold that will eventually crumble, we can invest in building a life that's meaningful to us. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom. By embracing impermanence, we gain clarity. We stop being swayed by the noise of the world and start listening to the quiet voice within us, the one that knows what truly matters. Now, let's bring this into your life. Imagine for a moment that societal pressures didn't exist. No expectations, no judgments, no fear of falling behind. What would you prioritize? How would you spend your time, your energy, your resources? Would you chase after external validation, or would you focus on cultivating inner peace, meaningful connections, and personal growth? Take a moment to reflect on that. Because when you strip away the fleeting pressures of society, what's left is the essence of who you are and what you truly value, and that's where real freedom begins. So, the next time you feel the weight of societal expectations, remember, they're not permanent. They're just passing clouds in the sky of your life. And you're the sky, vast, unchanging, and free. What if you could prepare for life's pressures before they even arise? Imagine having a mental toolkit ready to help you navigate challenges, stay true to yourself, and emerge stronger on the other side. This is the essence of the Stoic practice known as Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It's not about dwelling on negativity or expecting the worst. Instead, it's about anticipating challenges so you can face them with clarity and resilience. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most insightful voices, wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise. In other words, by mentally preparing for difficulties, we strip them of their power to overwhelm us. We become less reactive and more intentional, staying grounded in our values even when the world feels chaotic. Let's bring this to life with a practical example. Imagine someone who's about to give a public speech, a situation that fills them with anxiety. Instead of avoiding the thought of it or hoping for the best, they use Premeditatio Malorum. They sit down and visualize the worst-case scenarios, their voice shaking, the audience looking bored, or even forgetting their lines entirely. But here's the key, they don't stop there. They also visualize how they'll respond. They remind themselves that even if things go wrong, they can stay calm, adapt, and keep going. By mentally rehearsing these challenges, they build resilience. When the moment arrives, they're not caught off guard. They're prepared, focused, and able to stay true to themselves no matter what happens. Now, let's apply this to a bigger challenge. Think about a time when you faced a crisis. Maybe it was a job loss, a health scare, or a relationship falling apart. How did you respond? Did you feel overwhelmed, or were you able to stay grounded in your values? This is where Premeditatio Malorum can make all the difference. By anticipating potential challenges, you're not just bracing for impact, you're building the mental and emotional strength to handle whatever comes your way. You're reminding yourself of what truly matters, so when the pressure mounts, you don't lose sight of who you are. So, let me ask you this, what's a challenge you're currently facing, or one you're worried about in the future? Take a moment to mentally prepare for it. Visualize the worst-case scenario, but don't stop there. Think about how you'll respond, what values will guide you. What strengths will you draw on? By doing this, you're not just preparing for adversity, you're strengthening your ability to stay true to yourself, no matter what life throws at you. Because here's the truth, challenges are inevitable, but how we face them is up to us. And with Premeditatio Malorum, you can face them with courage, clarity, and authenticity. So, what's your next step? The way you speak to yourself shapes your reality. Think about that for a moment. The words you whisper in your mind, whether they're encouraging or critical, have the power to build you up or tear you down. This is why the Stoics placed such importance on inner dialogue. They understood that the conversations we have with ourselves are the foundation of how we see the world and how we respond to it. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, your thoughts shape your character, your actions, and ultimately your life. If you're constantly telling yourself that you're not good enough, that you need to change to fit in, or that you'll never measure up, those thoughts will seep into every part of your being. But if you replace that negativity with Stoic-aligned self-talk thoughts rooted in wisdom, courage, and self-acceptance, you can stay grounded in your authenticity no matter what pressures come your way. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly bombarded with societal expectations, whether it's about their career, their appearance, or their lifestyle. Every time they scroll through social media, they're met with images of perfect lives, and they start to feel like they're falling short. The inner dialogue begins, "Why can't I be like them? What's wrong with me? I'll never be enough." But then they remember the Stoic practice of self-talk. Instead of letting those negative thoughts take over, they pause and reframe them. They remind themselves, "I am enough. My worth isn't defined by external standards. I choose to live by my values, not by comparison." This shift in inner dialogue doesn't just change their mindset, it changes their reality. It gives them the strength to resist societal pressures and stay true to who they are. Now, let's bring this into a modern context. Think about someone who's preparing for a big presentation at work. They're nervous and the pressure to perform is intense. The negative self-talk starts creeping in. What if I mess up? What if they think I'm not good enough? But instead of letting those thoughts spiral, they use Stoic-aligned affirmations. They tell themselves, "I've prepared for this, I'm capable. Even if things don't go perfectly, I'll handle it with grace." By reinforcing positive, grounded self-talk, they're able to step into the room with confidence, staying true to themselves regardless of the outcome. So let me ask you this, what's the tone of your inner dialogue? Are you kind and encouraging to yourself, or do you find yourself caught in a cycle of negativity and self-doubt? Take a moment to reflect on the patterns of your self-talk. Are there phrases or beliefs that no longer serve you? What would it look like to replace them with thoughts that align with your values and your authenticity? Because here's the truth, the way you speak to yourself matters. It's the foundation of how you navigate the world and how you stay true to yourself even when the world tries to pull you in a different direction. So, what's one negative thought pattern you're ready to let go of? And what positive, Stoic-aligned affirmation can you replace it with? The power to shape your reality starts with the words you choose, so choose wisely. Stoics see obstacles as opportunities to grow. It's a mindset that might sound counterintuitive at first. After all, when we're faced with challenges, our instinct is often to resist, to feel frustrated, or even to give up. But Stoicism offers a different perspective. Every obstacle, every pressure, every moment of adversity is a chance to strengthen your character and deepen your authenticity. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it this way: "The obstacle is the way." What he meant was that the very things that seem to block our path can actually become the stepping stones to our growth. When we reframe challenges as opportunities, we stop seeing them as threats and start seeing them as tools that help us become more resilient, more grounded, and more true to ourselves. Let's break this down. Imagine you're facing a societal pressure that feels overwhelming. Maybe it's the expectation to conform to a certain lifestyle, or the fear of judgment for pursuing an unconventional path. At first glance, it might seem like a barrier, something standing in the way of your happiness. But what if you could see it differently? What if, instead of resisting it, you could use it as a test of your character? This is the Stoic approach. By viewing societal pressures as challenges to overcome, you transform them into opportunities to prove your strength, your values, and your commitment to living authentically. Take the story of a young entrepreneur who faced constant skepticism from friends and family when she decided to start her own business. Everyone told her it was too risky, that she should stick to a safe career path. The pressure to conform was intense, and there were moments when she doubted herself, but instead of giving in to those doubts, she used them as fuel. She reminded herself that every no she heard was an opportunity to prove her resilience, every setback a chance to refine her vision. Over time, she not only built a successful business, but also discovered a deeper sense of self-confidence and purpose. By embracing the adversity, she turned it into an advantage, and in doing so, she stayed true to herself. Now, let's turn this inward. What's a challenge you're facing right now? Maybe it's a difficult relationship, a career setback, or even the pressure to fit into societal norms. How can you reframe that challenge as an opportunity? What would it look like to see it not as a roadblock, but as a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more authentic? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth: every challenge you face is an invitation to rise above, to stay true to your values, and to become the best version of yourself. So, the next time you encounter an obstacle, remember the Stoic wisdom: the obstacle is the way. How will you use it to grow? Remembering death can help you live more authentically. It might sound morbid at first, but the Stoic practice of Memento Mori, literally, remember you must die, isn't about dwelling on fear or despair. Instead, it's a powerful tool for clarity. By reflecting on the inevitability of death, we're reminded of life's brevity and the importance of living in alignment with our true values. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most profound voices, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." His words cut to the heart of the matter. Life is short and every moment is precious. When we truly grasp this, the trivial pressures of society, the need to fit in, to chase approval, to accumulate status, begin to lose their grip. What remains is what truly matters: our relationships, our passions, and the legacy we want to leave behind. Let's bring this to life with a practical example. Imagine someone who's spent years climbing the corporate ladder, sacrificing time with family and personal passions along the way. They've achieved success by societal standards, but deep down they feel unfulfilled. Then one day they're confronted with a health scare, a stark reminder of their mortality. This moment becomes a turning point. They start practicing Memento Mori, reflecting on the brevity of life and what truly matters to them. Slowly, they begin to shift their priorities. They spend more time with loved ones, pursue a long-neglected passion for painting, and even take a step back from their high-pressure job to focus on their well-being. By embracing the practice of Memento Mori, they reclaim their life, choosing authenticity over societal expectations. Now, let's turn this inward. What about you? If you knew your time was limited, what would you do differently? Would you continue chasing external validation, or would you focus on what truly brings you joy and meaning? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth: life is fleeting and the pressures of society are temporary. When you remember that your time is finite, you gain the courage to live authentically, to prioritize what matters most to you, not what others expect of you. So let me ask you this: what's one thing you'd change about your life if you knew your time was limited? And what's stopping you from making that change today? Because the practice of Memento Mori isn't just about remembering death. It's about embracing life fully and authentically while you still can. Saying no is a Stoic act of self-respect. Think about that for a moment. How often do you find yourself saying yes when you really mean no? Maybe it's agreeing to take on extra work, attending an event you'd rather skip, or even sacrificing your own needs to keep someone else happy. It's easy to fall into the trap of overcommitment, especially when societal pressures push us to be everything to everyone. But here's the truth: every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values or priorities, you're saying no to yourself. And over time, that erodes your sense of authenticity. Stoicism teaches us that setting boundaries isn't just about protecting your time. It's about honoring your values and staying true to who you are. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical thinkers, put it this way: freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. In other words, true freedom comes from choosing what aligns with your values and letting go of the rest. Let's bring this to life with a practical example. Imagine someone who's constantly juggling work, family, and social obligations. They're the go-to person for favors, the one who never says no, and it's starting to take a toll. They're exhausted, overwhelmed, and feeling like they've lost sight of their own needs. Then they stumble upon Stoicism and the idea of setting boundaries. They realize that every time they say yes to someone else, they're saying no to their own well-being. So they start small. The next time a friend asks for a favor that would stretch them too thin, they politely decline. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even selfish, but over time, they notice something remarkable. They're less stressed, more present, and finally able to focus on what truly matters to them. By saying no, they've reclaimed their time, their energy, and their sense of self. Now, let's turn this inward. What about you? Where in your life are you saying yes when you really mean no? Is it at work, in your relationships, or even in how you spend your free time? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the thing: setting boundaries isn't about being selfish, it's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that your time, your energy, and your values are worth protecting. And when you start saying no to what doesn't serve you, you create space for what does. So let me ask you this: what's one area of your life where you need to set a stronger boundary? And what would it look like to say no, not out of fear or guilt, but out of self-respect? Because when you start honoring your boundaries, you're not just saying no to others, you're saying yes to yourself, and that's where true freedom begins. Gratitude is a Stoic tool for staying grounded. Think about it: how often do we chase after things we don't have, believing they'll bring us happiness, only to find ourselves still unsatisfied? It's a cycle that can leave us feeling disconnected from who we truly are. But Stoicism offers a simple yet profound antidote: gratitude. By focusing on what we already have, we shift our attention away from external pressures and toward the things that truly matter. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These words remind us that gratitude isn't just a fleeting emotion. It's a practice, a way of seeing the world that keeps us anchored in our authenticity. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly comparing themselves to others, always feeling like they're falling short. They scroll through social media, seeing friends with better jobs, bigger houses, or more exciting lives, and it leaves them feeling inadequate. But then they start practicing gratitude. Each morning, they take a moment to reflect on what they're thankful for: a supportive partner, a roof over their head, even the simple joy of a warm cup of coffee. Over time, something shifts. They stop chasing after what they don't have and start appreciating what they do. The need for external validation fades, and in its place, they find a deep sense of contentment. This is the power of gratitude. It helps us stay true to ourselves by reminding us of what truly matters. Now, let's bring this into a modern context. Think about someone who's navigating a high-pressure job in a competitive industry. They're constantly striving for the next promotion, the next milestone, the next validation from their peers. But no matter how much they achieve, it never feels like enough. Then they discover Stoicism and the practice of gratitude. They start keeping a gratitude journal, writing down 3 things they're thankful for each day. At first, it feels small, almost insignificant, but over time, they notice a change. They're less focused on what others think and more grounded in their own values. They start to see their work not as a race for approval, but as an opportunity to contribute meaningfully. By practicing gratitude, they've found a way to stay true to themselves, even in a world that's constantly pushing them to be more. So let me ask you this: what are 3 things you're grateful for today? Take a moment to reflect on that. It could be something big, like a loving relationship or a fulfilling career, or something small, like a beautiful sunset or a kind word from a stranger. The point isn't to compare your list to anyone else's, it's to remind yourself of what truly matters to you. Because when you practice gratitude, you're not just appreciating what you have, you're reaffirming your values, your priorities, and your sense of self. And in a world that's always trying to pull you in different directions, that's a powerful way to stay grounded. So, what's on your list? Comparison is the thief of authenticity. Think about that for a moment. How often do you find yourself measuring your worth against someone else's achievements, appearance, or lifestyle? It's a trap we all fall into, especially in a world where social media constantly bombards us with curated snapshots of other people's perfect lives. But here's the truth: every time you compare yourself to someone else, you're not just stealing your own joy, you're eroding your sense of self. Stoicism offers a powerful antidote to this toxic habit. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most insightful voices, wrote, "Envy of other people shows how they are unhappy. Their continual attention to others' behavior shows how they are boring." What he's saying is this: when we focus on others, we lose sight of ourselves. We become disconnected from our own values, our own path, and our own unique potential. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly comparing themselves to their peers. They see a friend landing a dream job, another buying a house, and yet another traveling the world. Each time they scroll through their feed, they feel a pang of envy, a sense that they're falling behind. But here's the thing: comparison doesn't just steal their joy, it distracts them from their own journey. Instead of focusing on what they truly want, they're chasing after someone else's version of success. This is where Stoicism steps in. By teaching us to focus on what's within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our values, it helps us break free from the cycle of comparison. It reminds us that the only person we should be competing with is ourselves. Now, let's bring this to life with a practical example. Think about someone who dreamed of becoming a writer but constantly compared themselves to more successful authors. They'd read best-selling novels and think, "I'll never be that good," or see peers publishing books and feel like they were falling behind. The pressure to measure up was paralyzing. But then they discovered Stoicism. They started focusing on their own progress, setting small, achievable goals, and celebrating their unique voice. Over time, they stopped worrying about what others were doing and started writing for the sheer joy of it. And guess what? Their authenticity shone through. They didn't just write a book, they wrote their book, one that resonated deeply with readers because it was true to who they were. By letting go of comparison, they found their own path. So let me ask you this: where in your life are you comparing yourself to others? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even how you see your own worth? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth: your journey is yours alone. No one else can walk it for you, and no one else's path should define yours. When you stop comparing and start focusing on your own growth, you reclaim your authenticity. You become the author of your own story, grounded in your values and guided by your unique potential. So, what's one area of your life where you're ready to let go of comparison? And what would it look like to focus on your own path instead? Because when you stop measuring yourself against others, you start living a life that's truly your own. In silence, we find clarity. Think about that for a moment. When was the last time you truly disconnected from the noise of the world, the constant buzz of notifications, the endless chatter of opinions, the relentless demands of daily life? It's easy to get swept up in the chaos, to lose sight of who we are beneath all the external pressures. But Stoicism teaches us that silence and solitude are not just luxuries, they're necessities for staying true to ourselves. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "Nowhere can a person find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in their own soul." His words remind us that within the stillness of solitude lies the space to reconnect with our deepest values, our truest selves. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly surrounded by noise, whether it's the demands of work, the expectations of family, or the endless scroll of social media. They're always on, always reacting, always trying to keep up, but deep down they feel disconnected, like they're living someone else's life. Then they decide to take a step back. They carve out time for solitude, whether it's a quiet walk in nature, a morning meditation, or simply sitting alone with their thoughts. In that stillness, something remarkable happens. The external noise fades and they begin to hear their own voice again. They reconnect with their values, their passions, and what truly matters to them. This is the power of silence. It strips away the distractions and brings us back to ourselves. Now, let's bring this to life with a practical example. Think about a busy professional who felt overwhelmed by the constant demands of their job and social life. They were always rushing, always multitasking, always trying to meet everyone else's expectations. But then, they decided to take a weekend retreat just 48 hours away from it all. No phone, no emails, no distractions. At first, the silence felt uncomfortable, even unsettling. But as the hours passed, they began to relax. They journaled, reflected, and simply sat with their thoughts. By the end of the weekend, they felt a profound sense of clarity. They realized how much of their life was driven by external pressures, and they made a commitment to prioritize their own values moving forward. That weekend of solitude didn't just recharge them, it transformed them. So, let me ask you this. When was the last time you allowed yourself to truly be alone with your thoughts? How often do you step away from the noise to reconnect with who you are? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth. In a world that's always pulling us in different directions, silence and solitude are not just acts of self-care, they're acts of self-respect. They're the moments when we can hear our own voice above the din, when we can remember what truly matters to us. So, what's one way you can incorporate more quiet moments into your life? Whether it's a daily walk, a few minutes of meditation, or even just turning off your phone for an hour, the power of silence is within your reach. And when you embrace it, you'll find not just clarity, but the courage to stay true to yourself, no matter what the world throws your way. Stoics embrace their fate, no matter the circumstances. It's a bold statement, isn't it? To love your fate, every twist, every turn, every challenge sounds almost impossible in a world that constantly pushes us to strive for more, to be more, to achieve more. But here's the thing, the Stoic practice of Amor Fati, or love of fate, isn't about passive acceptance. It's about active engagement with life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical teachers, put it this way: do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happens the way it happens, then you will be happy. In other words, happiness comes not from controlling life, but from embracing it fully, even when it doesn't go according to plan. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's faced a series of setbacks. Maybe they lost their job, went through a difficult breakup, or experienced a health crisis. At first, they resist their circumstances. They feel angry, frustrated, even betrayed by life, but then they discover Amor Fati. Instead of fighting against what's happened, they start to see these challenges as opportunities. They realize that every setback has shaped them, every hardship has taught them something valuable. By embracing their fate, they stop seeing themselves as victims and start seeing themselves as active participants in their own story. This shift in perspective doesn't just help them survive, it helps them thrive. Now, let's bring this to life with a practical example. Think about someone who dreamed of becoming a professional athlete but suffered a career-ending injury. At first, they're devastated. All their plans, all their hard work seem to have been for nothing. But then they begin to practice Amor Fati. They start to see their injury not as the end of their dreams, but as the beginning of a new chapter. They pivot, using their experience to coach young athletes, write about resilience, and even advocate for mental health in sports. Over time, they realize that their injury didn't destroy their life, it redirected it. By embracing their fate, they found a new purpose, one that was even more meaningful than the one they'd originally planned. So, let me ask you this: what's a circumstance in your life that you've been resisting? Maybe it's a job you didn't want, a relationship that didn't work out, or even a personal challenge you've been struggling to overcome. How would it feel to stop fighting against it and start embracing it instead? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth: when you love your fate, you stop seeing life as something that happens to you and start seeing it as something that happens for you. You reclaim your power, your authenticity, and your ability to thrive, no matter what comes your way. So, what's one thing in your life that you're ready to embrace? And how might it change your perspective if you did? Because when you practice Amor Fati, you're not just accepting your fate, you're loving it, and that's where true freedom begins. Courage is the backbone of authenticity. Think about it: how often do we know what's right for us, what aligns with our values, but hesitate to act because of fear? Fear of judgment, fear of failure, even fear of standing out. Yet, Stoicism teaches us that courage isn't just about grand, heroic acts, it's about the small, everyday choices to stay true to ourselves even when it's uncomfortable. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most powerful voices, wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." His words remind us that courage isn't just for the battlefield, it's for the moments when we choose to live authentically, even in the face of societal pressures. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's passionate about environmental sustainability, but their workplace prioritizes profit over ethical practices. They're constantly pressured to cut corners, to ignore the environmental impact of their decisions. Speaking up could mean risking their job, their reputation, even their relationships with colleagues. But here's the thing: staying silent would mean betraying their values. This is where courage comes in. It's not about being fearless, it's about acting in spite of fear. By standing up for what they believe in, they're not just protecting the planet, they're protecting their sense of self. And that's the essence of authenticity. Now, let's bring this to life with a modern example. Think about a young activist who organized a protest in their community to fight against a harmful policy. They faced backlash, threats, criticism, even ridicule from those who disagreed, but they didn't back down. Why? Because they knew that staying silent would mean compromising their values. Their courage didn't just inspire others, it reaffirmed their own commitment to living authentically. And in doing so, they proved that courage isn't just about standing up to external pressures, it's about standing up for who you are. So let me ask you this: where in your life do you need to be more courageous? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even in how you express yourself? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth: Courage isn't about being fearless, it's about choosing your values over your fears. It's about taking that first step, even when the path ahead is uncertain. So, what's one area where you're ready to stand up for yourself, and what would it look like to take that step today? Because when you choose courage, you're not just staying true to yourself, you're showing the world the power of authenticity. Stoics know that possessions don't define us. Think about that for a moment. In a world that constantly tells us we need more money, more gadgets, more status, how often do we stop to ask ourselves, do these things really make us happy? Or do they just add to the noise, pulling us further away from who we truly are? Stoicism offers a powerful counterpoint to this cultural obsession with materialism. It teaches us that true fulfillment doesn't come from what we own, but from how we live our values, our relationships, and our inner peace. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical voices, put it bluntly, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. His words remind us that the more we attach ourselves to material things, the more we risk losing sight of what truly matters. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's spent years chasing after the latest trends, buying the newest phone, the fanciest car, the biggest house. They've worked tirelessly to keep up with societal expectations, believing that these possessions will bring them happiness. But over time, they start to feel empty. The thrill of a new purchase fades quickly, and they're left with a sense of dissatisfaction, always wanting more. This is the trap of materialism. It promises fulfillment but delivers only fleeting pleasure. Stoicism, however, offers a way out. By shifting our focus from external possessions to internal values, we can break free from this cycle and rediscover what truly brings us joy. Now, let's bring this to life with a practical example. Think about someone who decided to simplify their life. They sold their oversized house, downsized to a smaller home, and got rid of countless possessions they no longer needed. At first, it felt strange, even scary, but over time they noticed something remarkable. They felt lighter, freer, more at peace. Without the constant pressure to acquire and maintain things, they had more time and energy to focus on what truly mattered, spending time with loved ones, pursuing their passions, and cultivating inner growth. By letting go of material attachments, they didn't just simplify their life, they reclaimed their authenticity. So, let me ask you this, what do you truly need to be happy? Is it the latest gadget, the trendiest clothes, or the biggest house? Or is it something deeper: connection, purpose, peace of mind? Take a moment to reflect on that. Because here's the truth, the things we own are just tools. They can make life more convenient, more comfortable, but they can't define us. When we stop chasing after possessions and start focusing on what truly matters, we find a sense of freedom that no amount of money can buy. So, what's one thing you're ready to let go of? And what would it feel like to live a life that's not defined by what you own, but by who you are? Because when you embrace the Stoic view of materialism, you're not just simplifying your life, you're reclaiming your authenticity. And that's where true happiness begins. Journaling is a Stoic tool for self-discovery. Think about it, how often do we truly pause to reflect on our thoughts, our actions, and the values that guide us? In a world that's constantly pulling us in different directions, journaling offers a rare opportunity to slow down, turn inward, and reconnect with who we truly are. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, understood this deeply. His personal writings, now known as meditations, were essentially a journal, a space where he could reflect on his values, his challenges, and his growth. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words remind us that journaling isn't just about recording events, it's about uncovering the strength within us to stay true to ourselves, no matter what pressures we face. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly bombarded with societal expectations, whether it's about their career, their appearance, or their lifestyle. They feel pulled in 100 different directions, unsure of what they truly want. Then they start journaling. Each evening, they take a few minutes to write about their day, not just what happened, but how they felt, what they learned, and whether their actions aligned with their values. Over time, something remarkable happens. They begin to see patterns, moments when they compromised their authenticity to fit in, and moments when they stood firm in their values. This clarity helps them make more intentional choices, resisting the pull of societal pressures and staying grounded in who they are. Now, let's bring this to life with a modern example. Think about a young professional who felt overwhelmed by the demands of their job and the pressure to conform to a certain image. They were constantly trying to meet everyone else's expectations, but deep down they felt lost. Then they discovered Stoic journaling. They started writing every morning, reflecting on their core values: integrity, creativity, and compassion, and how they could embody them throughout the day. At first, it felt like a small, almost insignificant practice, but over time it became a lifeline. Journaling helped them see where they were bending to societal pressures and where they were staying true to themselves. It gave them the clarity and courage to make changes, to say no to projects that didn't align with their values, to speak up for what they believed in, and to prioritize their well-being. By journaling, they didn't just survive the pressures of modern life, they thrived, staying grounded in their authenticity. So let me ask you this: what would it look like to start your own journaling practice? Take a moment to reflect on that. It doesn't have to be complicated, just a few minutes each day to write about your thoughts, your values, and how you're living them out. What are the values that guide you, and how can you use journaling to stay true to them, even when the world tries to pull you in a different direction? Because here's the truth: when you journal, you're not just writing words on a page, you're uncovering your own strength, your own clarity, and your own authenticity. So, what's one value you want to focus on today, and how will you bring it to life? The power to stay true to yourself starts with a pen, a page, and a moment of reflection. Are you ready to begin? Failure is not the end, it's a lesson. Think about that for a moment. How often do we let the fear of failure hold us back? Whether it's in our careers, relationships, or personal goals, the pressure to succeed can feel overwhelming. Society tells us that failure is something to avoid at all costs, a mark of inadequacy or weakness. But Stoicism offers a radically different perspective. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most profound voices, wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." His words remind us that failure isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. It's through setbacks that we grow, learn, and ultimately become more authentic versions of ourselves. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's poured their heart into a project. Maybe it's a business venture, a creative endeavor, or even a personal goal. They've worked tirelessly, but despite their efforts, it doesn't succeed. At first, they feel defeated, even ashamed. They start to question their abilities, their worth, their very identity. But then, they remember the Stoic approach to failure. Instead of seeing it as a dead end, they see it as a stepping stone. They reflect on what went wrong, what they learned, and how they can grow from the experience. Over time, they realize that this failure didn't break them, it made them stronger, wiser, and more resilient. This is the Stoic view of failure, not as a final verdict, but as a teacher. Now, let's bring this to life with a practical example. Think about a young entrepreneur who launched their first startup. They had big dreams, a solid plan, and the drive to make it happen. But despite their best efforts, the business failed. At first, they were devastated. They felt like they'd let themselves and everyone around them down. But instead of giving up, they turned to Stoicism. They began to see their failure not as a reflection of their worth, but as an opportunity to learn. They analyzed what went wrong, identified areas for improvement, and even discovered new passions along the way. A few years later, they launched a new venture, this time with a deeper understanding of their strengths, their values, and what truly mattered to them. Their failure didn't define them, it refined them, and in doing so, it helped them become more authentic, more grounded, and more true to themselves. So let me ask you this: what's a failure in your life that taught you something valuable? Take a moment to reflect on that. Maybe it was a job you didn't get, a relationship that didn't work out, or a goal you didn't achieve. What did you learn from that experience? How did it shape you into the person you are today? Because here's the truth: failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a part of it. When we embrace our failures, we stop seeing them as obstacles and start seeing them as opportunities. We grow stronger, wiser, and more authentic. So what's one failure you're ready to reframe, and how might it change your perspective if you did? Because when you see failure as a lesson, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. And that's where true authenticity begins. Authenticity thrives in the right company. Think about it: how often do we find ourselves bending to fit in, simply because of the people around us? The truth is, the company we keep has a profound impact on how we see ourselves and how we navigate the world. Stoicism, often seen as a solitary practice, actually places great importance on community. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical teachers, put it this way: "You become like those whose company you keep. Therefore, choose companions who reflect the person you want to become." His words remind us that the people we surround ourselves with can either lift us up or pull us down. They can either reinforce our authenticity or chip away at it. So the question is, who are you choosing to spend your time with? Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly surrounded by people who prioritize status, material success, and external validation. Every conversation revolves around who has the latest gadget, who's climbing the corporate ladder fastest, or who's living the most Instagram-worthy life. Over time, this person starts to feel the pressure to conform. They begin to measure their worth by the same shallow standards, losing sight of their own values and passions. But then, they find a new group of friends, people who value kindness, creativity, and personal growth. Suddenly, the pressure to fit into a mold begins to fade. They feel seen, supported, and free to be themselves. This is the power of community. It can either amplify societal pressures or help us resist them. Now let's bring this to life with a modern example. Think about someone who joined a local book club focused on personal development and philosophy. At first, they were nervous. Would they fit in? Would they have anything meaningful to contribute? But as they started attending meetings, they found something remarkable. A group of people who weren't just interested in discussing ideas, but in living them. They shared stories of overcoming challenges, pursuing their passions, and staying true to their values, even when it was hard. Over time, this person began to feel a sense of belonging they'd never experienced before. The book club wasn't just a place to talk about books. It was a community that encouraged authenticity, growth, and resilience. By surrounding themselves with like-minded individuals, they found the strength to resist societal pressures and stay true to who they were. So let me ask you this: who are the people in your life right now? Are they lifting you up, encouraging you to be your best self, or are they pulling you down, pressuring you to conform to their expectations? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth: the right community doesn't just support you, it helps you thrive. It reminds you of your values, your strengths, and your potential. So, what's one step you can take to surround yourself with people who inspire you to be authentic? Whether it's joining a new group, reconnecting with old friends, or simply setting boundaries with those who drain your energy, the power to choose your community is in your hands. And when you do, you'll find not just support, but the courage to stay true to yourself, no matter what the world throws your way. Mindfulness is a Stoic tool for staying grounded. Think about it. How often do we get caught up in the noise of the world, worrying about the future or dwelling on the past while the present moment slips away unnoticed? It's easy to lose ourselves in the chaos, to feel pulled in 100 different directions by societal pressures, expectations, and distractions. But Stoicism teaches us that the key to staying true to ourselves lies in the here and now. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." His words remind us that the present moment is all we truly have, and it's where we find the clarity and strength to resist the pressures of the world. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly overwhelmed by the demands of modern life. They're juggling work, family, and social obligations, always thinking about what's next, what they need to do, what they might have missed. The pressure to keep up, to meet expectations, to fit into a mold feels suffocating. But then they discover mindfulness. They start practicing simple techniques, focusing on their breath, noticing the sensations in their body, paying attention to the world around them. At first, it feels strange, even uncomfortable, but over time, something shifts. They begin to feel more grounded, more present, more connected to who they truly are. The noise of societal pressures fades into the background, and they find a sense of peace they hadn't known before. This is the power of mindfulness. It brings us back to ourselves, reminding us of what truly matters. Now let's bring this to life with a practical example. Think about someone who struggled with anxiety, constantly worrying about what others thought of them. They'd replay conversations in their mind, obsess over mistakes, and feel paralyzed by the fear of judgment. But then they started practicing mindfulness. Each day, they'd take a few minutes to sit quietly, focusing on their breath and letting go of their thoughts. Over time, they noticed a change. They became less reactive, less caught up in the opinions of others. They started to see that the present moment, free from judgment, free from pressure, was where they could truly be themselves. By practicing mindfulness, they didn't just manage their anxiety, they reclaimed their authenticity. So, let me ask you this. How often do you find yourself lost in thoughts about the past or the future, rather than fully present in the here and now? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth. When we're fully present, we're less swayed by societal pressures. We're more grounded in our values, more connected to our true selves. So, what's one way you can practice mindfulness today? It could be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, noticing the sensations in your body, or even just pausing to appreciate the world around you. The power to stay true to yourself starts with being present, and when you embrace mindfulness, you'll find not just peace, but the courage to live authentically, no matter what the world throws your way. So, what's your next step? Humility is the antidote to ego-driven pressures. Think about it. How often do we chase after recognition, status, or approval, believing that these things will make us feel worthy? It's a trap that many of us fall into, especially in a world that constantly tells us we need to be more, do more, and have more. But here's the truth. The need for external validation often stems from ego, from the belief that our worth is tied to what others think of us. Stoicism offers a powerful counter to this mindset. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most insightful voices, warned, "Pride is the greatest obstacle to wisdom and happiness." His words remind us that when we let go of pride and embrace humility, we free ourselves from the endless chase for approval and find a deeper, more authentic sense of self-worth. Let's break this down. Imagine someone who's constantly striving to prove themselves, whether it's at work, in their social circles, or even online. They're always seeking validation, always trying to outshine others, always worried about how they're perceived. But deep down, they feel empty, like no amount of recognition is ever enough. This is the trap of ego. It keeps us running on a treadmill, always chasing but never arriving. Stoicism, however, teaches us to step off that treadmill. By embracing humility, we stop measuring our worth by external standards and start finding it within ourselves. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. It's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes not from what others think of us, but from how we live our lives. Now let's bring this to life with a modern example. Think about a successful entrepreneur who built a thriving business but found themselves constantly stressed, always trying to outdo competitors and impress investors. They were driven by ego, by the need to be seen as the best, but over time they realized that this mindset was exhausting and ultimately unfulfilling. So they made a shift. They started focusing less on external validation and more on the impact they could have on their employees, their customers, and their community. They embraced humility, recognizing that their worth wasn't tied to their achievements or accolades, and something remarkable happened. They found a deeper sense of purpose and joy. By letting go of ego, they didn't just succeed, they thrived, staying true to themselves and making a meaningful difference in the world. So, let me ask you this: where in your life are you chasing external validation? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even how you present yourself online? Take a moment to reflect on that, because here's the truth: when you embrace humility, you stop seeking approval and start living authentically. You find strength not in what others think of you, but in who you truly are. So, what's one area of your life where you're ready to let go of ego and embrace humility? And how might it change your perspective and your life if you did? Because when you choose humility, you're not just resisting societal pressures, you're reclaiming your authenticity. And that's where true freedom begins. So, what does it truly mean to stay true to yourself in a world that's constantly trying to shape you? Throughout this video, we've explored how Stoic principles like the dichotomy of control, self-awareness, and cognitive detachment can help you resist societal pressures and live authentically. We've seen how Marcus Aurelius turned inward to find clarity amidst chaos, how Epictetus taught us to focus only on what's within our power, and how Seneca reminded us that true wealth lies in having few wants. These timeless ideas aren't just philosophical musings, they're practical tools for navigating the challenges of modern life. They remind us that authenticity isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about choosing your values over convenience, your inner peace over external validation, and your growth over the fear of failure. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." These words cut to the heart of what we've discussed today. Staying true to yourself isn't about rejecting the world, it's about mastering your response to it. It's about knowing who you are, what you stand for, and having the courage to live by those principles even when it's hard. So, let me ask you this: what's one Stoic principle that resonated with you the most? Is it the idea of focusing only on what you can control, or perhaps the practice of journaling to deepen your self-awareness? Whatever it is, take a moment to reflect on how you can bring it into your life, because the journey to authenticity isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, a series of small choices that add up to a life well lived. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more Stoic insights to help you navigate life's challenges with clarity and courage. And I'd love to hear from you. What's one way you're committing to staying true to yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, the world will always try to shape you, but the power to stay true to yourself is yours. So, what will you